I am 83 years old. I say that slowly because it took me a long time to learn how to sit inside my own age without flinching. 83 years. That is a lot of mornings, a lot of dishes washed, a lot of goodbyes whispered quietly into pillows so children wouldn't hear, a lot of love given without keeping score. If you're listening to me, I want you to imagine that I'm sitting across from you at a small kitchen table, the kind that has a tiny wobble if you lean too hard on one corner. My hands are folded, the skin is thin now, almost like paper, but they are steady. I've lived long enough to learn how to be steady. I am not here to teach you anything. I am not here to tell you what to do. I am simply here to tell you what life taught me, because after this many years, life has a way of speaking whether you ask it to or not. People think age gives you authority. I don't believe that. Age gives you perspective, and sometimes perspective is quieter than authority. It doesn't shout. It waits until someone is ready to hear it. When I was young, I thought wisdom would arrive like a moment, like a door opening, like someone finally explaining everything. But wisdom didn't come that way. It came like dust settling after a long day. It came slowly, through repetition, through mistakes I made more than once, through love I didn't protect well enough at first. I have been strong. I have been tired. I have been invisible in rooms where I once mattered. I have been needed so much that I forgot how to need myself, and I have been alone without ever actually being alone. So if you're here because something inside you feels heavy or unanswered or quietly aching, you're not wrong for that. Life does that to us. It leaves little knots inside the chest, and we carry them without knowing when they formed. I am not here to save you. I don't believe anyone ever really does, but I am here to sit with you for a while and tell you what I learned by living long enough to look back without anger. Just stay with me. There are some things time taught me that I wish I had understood sooner. One of the first hard truths life taught me is that time does not slow down for confusion. It doesn't pause when you're unsure. It keeps moving gently but firmly, like a river that doesn't ask permission. When I was younger, I spent a lot of time waiting, waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel chosen, waiting to feel certain. I thought patience meant holding still until life made sense. But patience, I learned, is not the same as postponing your own existence. Time taught me that self-worth is quiet. It doesn't beg to be recognized. It doesn't announce itself. It's something you feel when you stop explaining yourself to people who were never listening. I used to think being kind meant saying yes. Yes to help. Yes to staying. Yes to understanding everyone else before understanding myself. And kindness does matter. It matters deeply. But kindness without boundaries slowly turns into self-erasure. No one tells you that part when you're young. Life taught me that boundaries are not walls. They are doors you learn to open and close with care. You don't slam them. You don't lock them forever. You simply decide when you need rest more than approval. Acceptance was another lesson that took me decades. Acceptance is not giving up. It is seeing clearly without resentment. It is understanding that some things will never apologize and some people will never change, and that this does not mean you failed. I learned that not everything deserves your reaction. Some things deserve your silence. Silence can be a form of self-respect. It took me years to stop defending my every choice. I learned that the people who love you don't need explanations, and the people who demand them rarely accept them anyway. And perhaps the hardest truth of all, no one arrives to take responsibility for your life. Not your parents, not your partner, not your children. Life doesn't send a rescuer, it sends moments. And what you do with those moments becomes your story. This isn't cruel, it's clarifying. When you stop waiting for someone to come and make things right, you begin to see what you can gently make better yourself. That realization didn't make my life louder, it made it calmer. Aging is not what people think it is. It is not one long ache or one long sadness. It is a layering, memory on memory, love on loss, pride on regret. Yes, there are regrets. Anyone who tells you otherwise hasn't lived very deeply. I regret moments I rushed through because I was tired. I regret words I swallowed because I didn't want conflict. I regret not resting sooner when my body whispered before it had to shout. If you hear me mention motherhood, understand this gently. It is complicated. It is love and fear braided together so tightly you can't always tell them apart. I did my best with what I knew at the time, and later I did better when I knew more. That is all any of us can say honestly. There were sacrifices I made without realizing I was making them. There were pieces of myself I placed on shelves, thinking I would return for them later. Some of them were still there, some were not. But regret does not mean bitterness, it means awareness. And awareness, even late, has a strange tenderness to it. You stop punishing yourself. You start forgiving the younger version of you who didn't have the information you have now. Age teaches you that your worth was never measured by productivity or perfection or how well you carried everyone else. Your worth was always inherent. You just didn't know to name it yet. I don't hate my aging face. I see every year in it. I see laughter that stayed. I see sorrow that passed through. I see endurance. And endurance is not glamorous, but it is honest. If you are afraid of growing older, let me tell you this softly. Aging strips away illusions, and what remains is simpler, truer, and far less performative than youth ever allows. If you're listening to me right now and you feel tired in a way sleep doesn't fix, I want you to stay with me a little longer. If you feel like you've done everything you were supposed to do and still something feels unfinished, you're not alone in that feeling. I carried it for many years before I understood it. Sometimes feeling stuck isn't a failure. It's a pause asking for honesty. Not big decisions, just honesty. About what hurts, about what drains you, about what you've been quietly tolerating. You don't have to change your whole life after this. You don't have to make promises to yourself. You don't even have to agree with me. Just listen. Sometimes being seen without being fixed is enough to loosen something inside. I'm not here because I have answers. I'm here because I've lived long enough to know that gentleness is not weakness, and slowing down is not falling behind. So breathe, let your shoulders drop, and let me tell you what love taught me. Love is not a single story, it changes shape as you change. The love you need at 20 is not the love you need at 40 or 60. And expecting one person or one relationship to meet every version of you is a quiet way we exhaust ourselves. Marriage, partnership, companionship, whatever name you give it, requires emotional boundaries just as much as affection. I learned that loving someone does not mean carrying their emotions for them. It does not mean disappearing so they can feel whole. I gave more than I should have at times, not because anyone demanded it, but because I believed love was measured by endurance. I thought if I could just be patient enough, understanding enough, quiet enough, things would feel balanced. Balance, I learned, does not come from silence. It comes from mutual presence, from being allowed to exist fully without apology. This is not blame, it is clarity. People can love you and still not know how to meet you. That does not make them cruel, it makes them human. What I wish I had known sooner is that self-respect deepens love, it doesn't threaten it. When you honor yourself, you teach others how to treat you without saying a word. Love should feel like room to breathe, not like a test you keep failing quietly. And if love leaves or changes or softens into something different over time, that does not erase what it once was. It simply means it completed that chapter. Work takes a lot from us before we realize it's doing so. Not because work is bad, but because we often give it parts of ourselves we meant to save. I worked, I cared, I showed up, and I don't regret contributing. But I do wish I had rested without guilt sooner. I wish I had believed my body the first time it asked me to slow down. Health is not just the absence of illness, it is the presence of care. Care for your body, care for your mind, care for your pace. Aging taught me that slowing down is not surrender, it is refinement. You choose what matters because you no longer have the energy to pretend everything does. If I could leave you with one quiet truth, it is this. No one is coming to rescue you from your life, but you are not abandoned. You are capable. You are allowed to adjust. You are allowed to choose yourself without turning cold. This is my experience. This is what life taught me. I am not blaming anyone. I am simply sharing what I learned by staying long enough to understand. When the noise fades and the days become simpler, what remains is not regret. It is presence. And presence, when you allow it, is enough. Thank you for sitting with me.